Chapter 18. Lukashka returned to the cordon, and at the same time Daddy Eroshka whistled to his dogs, and climbing over his wattle fence, went to Olnen's lodging. Passing by the back deck of the house, he disliked meeting women before going out hunting or shooting. He found Olnen still asleep, and even Vanusha, though awake, was still in bed and looking around the room, considering whether it was not time to get up, when Daddy Eroshka, gun on his shoulder and in full hunter's trappings, opened the door. "A cudgel," he shouted in his deep voice. "An alarm. The Chechens are upon us. Ivan, get the samovar ready for your master, and get up yourself, quick," cried the old man. "That's our way, my good man. Why, even the girls are already up. Look out of the window. See, she's going for water, and you're still sleeping." Olnen woke and jumped up, feeling fresh and light-hearted at the sight of the old man and at the sound of his voice. "Quick, Vanusha, quick," he cried. "Is that the way you go hunting?" said the old man. "Others are having their breakfast, and you are asleep. Lyman, here," he called to his dog. "Is your gun ready?" he shouted, as loud as if the whole crowd were in the hut. "Well, it's true, I'm guilty, but it can't be helped. The powder, Vanusha, and the wads," said Olnen. "A fine," shouted the old man. "Du thé voulez-vous?" asked Vanusha, grinning. "You're not one of us. Your gabble is not like our speech, you devil," the old man shouted at Vanusha, showing the stumps of his teeth. "A first offense must be forgiven," said Olnen playfully, drawing on his high boots. "The first offense shall be forgiven," answered Eroshka. "But if you oversleep another time, you'll be fined a pail of shakir. When it gets warmer, you won't find the deer." "And even if we do find him, he is wiser than we are," said Olnen, repeating the words spoken by the old man the evening before. "And you can't deceive him." "Yes, laugh away. You kill one first, then you may talk. Now then, hurry up. Look, there's the master himself coming to see you," added Eroshka, looking out of the window. "Just see how he's got himself up. He's put on a new coat so that you should see he's an officer. Ah, these people, these people." Sure enough, Vanusha came in and announced that the master of the house wished to see Olnen. "L'argent," he remarked profoundly, to forewarn his master of the meaning of this visitation. Following him, the master of the house, in a new Circassian coat, with an officer's stripe on the shoulders, and with polished boots, quite exceptional among Cossacks, entered the room, swaying from side to side, and congratulated his lodger on a safe arrival. The cornet, Elias Vasilich, was an educated Cossack. He had been to Russia proper, was a regimental school teacher, and above all, he was a noble. He wished to appear noble, but one could not help feeling beneath his grotesque pretense of polish, his affection, his self-confidence, and his absurd way of speaking, he was just the same as Daddy Eroshka. This could also be clearly seen by his sunburned face, and his hands, and his red nose. Olnen asked him to sit down. "Good morning, Father Elias Vasilich," said Eroshka, rising, with, or it seemed to Olnen, an ironically low bow. "Good morning, Daddy. So you're here already," said the cornet with a careless nod. The cornet was a man of about 40, with a gray pointed beard, skinny and lean, but handsome, very fresh looking for his age. Having come to see Olnin, he was evidently afraid of being taken for an ordinary Cossack, and wanting to let Olnin feel his importance from the first. "That's our Egyptian Nimrod," he remarked, addressing Olnin, and pointing to the old man with a self-satisfied smile. "A mighty hunter before the Lord. He's our foremost man on every hand. You've already been pleased to get acquainted with him." Daddy Eroshka gazed at his feet in their shoes of wet rawhide and shook his head thoughtfully at the cornet's ability and learning, and muttered to himself, "Egyptian Nimrod, what things he invents." "Yes, you see we mean to go hunting," answered Olnin. "Yes, sir, exactly," said the cornet, "but I have a small business with you." "What do you want?" "Seeing that you are a gentleman," began the cornet, "and I may understand myself to be in the rank of an officer too, and therefore we may always progressively negotiate as gentlemen do." He stopped, and looked with a smile at Olnin and at the old man. "But if you have the desire, with my consent, then, as my wife is a foolish woman of our class, she could not quite comprehend your words of yesterday's date. Therefore, my quarters may be let for 6 rubles to the regimental adjunct, without the stables, but I can always avert that from myself free of charge, but as you desire. Therefore I, being myself of an officer's rank, can come to an agreement with you in everything personally, as an inhabitant of this district, not according to our customs, but can maintain the conditions in every way." "Speak clearly," muttered the old man. The cornet continued in the same strain for a long time, at least not without difficulty. Olnin gathered that the cornet wished to let his room to him, Olnin, for 6 rubles a month. The latter gladly agreed to this, and offered his visitor a glass of tea. The cornet declined it. "According to our silly customs, we consider it sort of a sin to drink out of a worldly tumbler," he said, "though of course, with my education, I may understand but my wife from her human weakness." "Well then, will you have some tea? If you will permit me, I will bring my own particular glass," answered the cornet, and stepped out into the porch. "Bring me my glass," he cried. In a few minutes, the door opened, and a young sunburnt arm in a print sleeve thrust itself in, holding a tumbler in the hand. The cornet went up, took it, and whispered something to his daughter. Olnin poured tea for the cornet into the latter's own particular glass, and for Eroshka into a worldly glass. "However, I do not desire to detain you," said the cornet, scalding his lips and emptying his tumbler. "I too have a great liking for fishing, and I am here, so to say, only on leave of absence for recreation from my duties. I too have the desire to tempt fortune, and see whether some gifts of the Terek may not fall into my share. I hope you too will come and see us, and have a drink of our wine, according to the custom of our village," he added. The cornet bowed, shook hands with Olnin, and went out. While Olnin was getting ready, he heard the cornet giving orders to his family in an authoritative and sensible tone, and a few moments later he saw him pass by the window in a tattered coat with his trousers rolled up to his knees and a fishing net over his shoulder. "A rascal," said Daddy Eroshka, emptying his worldly tumbler. "And will you really pay him 6 rubles? Was such a thing ever heard of? They would let you into the best hut in the village for 2 rubles. What a beast! Why, I'd let you have mine for 3. No, I'll remain here," said Olin. 6 rubles. Clearly it's a fool's money. Eh? Answered the old man. "Let's have some shakir, Ivan." Having had a snack and a drink of vodka to prepare themselves for the road, Olin and the old man went out together before 8 o'clock. At the gate, they came up against a wagon to which a pair of oxen were harnessed. With a white kerchief tied round her head down to her eyes, a coat over her smock, and wearing high boots, Myonka, with a long switch in her hand, was dragging the oxen by a cord tied to their horns. "Mammy," said the old man, pretending that he was going to seize her. Myonka flourished her switch at him and glanced merrily at them both with her beautiful eyes. Olin felt still more light-hearted. "Now then, come on, he said, throwing his gun on his shoulder and conscious of the girl's eyes upon him. "Gee up," sounded Myonka's voice behind them, followed by the creak of the moving wagon. As long as their road lay through the pastures, at the back of the village, Eroshka went on talking. He could not forget the cornet, and kept on abusing him. "Why are you so angry with him?" asked Olin. "He's stingy. I don't like it," answered the old man. "He'll leave it all behind when he dies. Then who's he saving up for? He's built 2 houses, and he's got a second garden from his brother by lawsuit. And in the matter of papers, what a dog he is. They come to him from the other villages to fill up documents. As he writes it out exactly, so it happens. He gets it quite exact. But who is he saving for? He's only got 1 boy and the girl. When she's married, who'll be left? Well then, he's saving up for her dowry," said Olin. "What dowry? The girl is sought after. She's a fine girl, but he's such a devil that he must yet marry her to a rich fellow. He wants to get a big price for her. There's Luke, a Cossack, a neighbor, and a nephew of mine, a fine lad. It's he who's killed the Chechen. He's been wooing her for a long time, but he hasn't let him have her. He's given one excuse and another and a third. The girl's too young, he says, but I know what he's thinking. He wants to keep them bowing to him. He's been acting shamefully about that girl. Still, they will get her for Lukashka, because he is the best Cossack in the village, a brave, who has killed an Albrecht, and will be rewarded with a cross. But how about this? When I was walking up and down the yard last night, I saw my landlord's daughter and some Cossack kissing," said Olin. "You're pretending," cried the old man, stopping. "On my word," said Olin. "Women are the devil," said Eroshka, pondering. "But what Cossack was it?" "I couldn't see." "Well, what sort of cap had he? A white one?" "Yes." "And a red coat? About your height?" "No, a bit taller." "It's he." And Eroshka burst out laughing. "It's himself. It's Mark. He is Luke, but I call him Mark as a joke. His very self. I love him. I was just such a one myself. What's the good of minding them? My sweetheart used to sleep with her mother and her sister-in-law, but I managed to get in. She used to sleep upstairs. That witch, her mother, was a regular demon. It's awful how she hated me. Well, I used to come with a chum. Gerchek was his name. We'd come under her window, and I'd climb up on his shoulders, push up the window, and begin groping about. She used to sleep just there on a bench. Once I woke her up and nearly called out. She hadn't recognized me. "Who's there?" she said, and I could not answer. Her mother was even beginning to stir, but I took off my cap and shoved it over her mouth, and she at once knew it by the seam in it, and ran out to me. I used to not want anything then. She'd bring along clotted cream and grapes, and everything, added Eroshka, who always explained things practically. And she wasn't the only one. It was a life. And what now? Now we'll follow the dog, get a pheasant to settle on a tree, and then you may fire. Would you have made up to Maryanka? Attend to the dogs, and I'll tell you tonight, said the old man, pointing to his favorite dog, Liam. After a pause, they continued talking, while they went about 100 paces. Then the old man stopped again, and pointed to a twig that lay across the path. "What do you think of that?" he said. "You think it's nothing? It's bad that this stick is laying so." "Why is it bad?" He smiled. "Ah, you don't know anything. Just listen to me. When a stick lies like that, you don't step across it, but go around it, or throw it off the path this way, and say, 'Father and Son and Holy Ghost,' and then you go on with God's blessing. Nothing will happen to you. That's what old men used to teach me." "Come on, what rubbish," said Olnin. "You better tell me more about Maryanka. Does she carry on with Lukushka?" "Hush, be quiet now." The old man again interrupted in a whisper. "Just listen. We'll go around through the forest." And the old man, stepping quietly in his soft shoes, led the way by a narrow path leading into the dense, wild, overgrown forest. Now and again, with a frown, he turned to look at Olnin, who rustled and clattered with his heavy boots, and carrying his gun carelessly, several times caught the twigs of trees that grew across the path. "Don't make a noise. Step softly, soldier," the old man whispered angrily. There was a feeling in the air that the sun had risen. The mist was dissolving, but it still enveloped the top of the trees. The forest looked terribly high. At every step, the aspect changed. What had appeared like a tree proved to be a bush, and a reed looked like a tree.